John, how are you? Whoa, can't hear you. That might be my fault too. Can you hear me? Okay, that's good. That's half the battle. Hang on, let me see if I can get my speakers.
Thumbs up.
All right, thumbs up. We're good to go. Welcome, everybody. My name is Noah Mayer. I am a professional at doing the thing that many people have said we really should not be doing, which is getting money into politics instead of out of it. So I'll go ahead and just apologize in advance for what I do professionally. However, I think it's important, and I think it's important for a number of reasons, mostly because I'm trying to give folks the freedom to make change. Um, my role, and hopefully your role after this phone call, will be to make your fundraising systems just a little bit easier. And I'm not promising the moon. Fundraising is hard. It has been hard for 100 years. It will be hard for the next 100 years. But if you have a little bit of guide rails, hopefully we can make your life 10% easier and give you 10% more time to spend with the voters, to spend with your family, to spend with your nonprofit doing the work that your nonprofit does. So we have all sorts of different people on this phone call, and everybody except for John will get to chime in. John, I'm sorry. John can just wave and use sign language to help us out. But I'm really, really excited and honored to be here and to meet you all. Here's the way today's going to work. I'm going to blather a little bit about myself. I'm going to kind of just tell you why I got into the space, how I got into the space. I'd like to hear a little bit from you about some of the challenges that you're facing. I'm going to run through two different things, and I'll go ahead and spoil one of them. One of them is how to fundraise during COVID-19. And the answer is it's the same way you fundraise every other time. That's the spoiler. There's some nuances there. We'll get into them. But they have done a lot of studies now. They've had a lot of evidence, 4 months of evidence to suggest that doing the same things that we always do, but doing them well, is actually the most effective way to fundraise during COVID-19. And then we're going to talk about just what that means. Like, what's the process of prospecting, qualifying, asking, getting commitments, getting thank yous, following up, upgrading, all of the different nuances of the fundraising process. We only have a little bit of time. I'm going to try to squeeze it into an hour and leave the last 15, 20 minutes for questions and answers. I can't promise that I'm going to do that. I love talking. So I'll do the best that I can, and you guys can keep me accountable and keep me on track. Thumbs up if that sounds good to everybody on the call. Awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, well, let's get started. A little bit about me, and then we'll jump right in. I fundraised briefly for the ACLU, built out the mid-level donor program at the ACLU before bouncing back into politics. I started my career working in red states, bouncing around the country, fundraising for various people. And all of the fundraising that I did up until that point was the most difficult kind of fundraising, the kind of fundraising that you know about, which is $10 at a time, $20 at a time, $50 at a time. Nothing special. You know, Bill Gates wasn't writing us checks. And right now, for the first time in my life, and it's really kind of nice, I'm working for an organization that's on the opposite side of that spectrum. So billionaires writing $10 million checks. And it's way easier. It's way easier. So if you can find a billionaire to write you a $10 million check, like I recommend just going for it. But I kind of fell into that. And the work that I love is still $5 at a time, $10 at a time. In fact, my very favorite project that we're working on right now is just a penny at a time. And that's folks to give a penny every time Donald Trump tweets. And over time, those pennies add up and get him out of office. So we've raised $800,000 in pennies so far in that campaign. a lot of amazing work going on right now all over the country. And so I want to find out from you, for those who are able to speak, and John, you can type in the chat, where are you from? What do you do? And what's your biggest fundraising problem right now? And I'm going to go ahead and kick it off with James.
Okay. Well, I'm here in Fresno. My day job, I am a registered nurse, the office manager, the nurse manager at an ambulatory surgery center. And what I'm seeing is the biggest problem, well, is COVID, but you can't have the sit-down dinner. You can't have the large gatherings. And we're just so used to that in this area. Doesn't matter if it's apple pie and ice cream in somebody's backyard. You can't have 30, 40 people on a meet and greet with apple pie and ice cream anymore. So we're having to change how we think about this. And, you know, that idea of, well, I'm going to go ask my friends for $10. Well, you know, that gets old after about the 19th time. And I think that's the problem that we're having, is hitting that same group for the, you know, but I did have one question. That $800,000 in pennies that you raised, is that 800,000 donors, or does Trump tweet that much?
Donald Trump tweets 900 times a month, we learned. So the pennies add up quick.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, James. I appreciate that. Aaron.
Not to be boring, but here in Washington, D.C., we have many of the same problems that you seem to be having elsewhere as well. We had planned on hosting a lot of events to raise money. And that's typically how things had been done. And of course, you can't bring people together. You can't have people over for a party or to hear a speaker or to see a film screening or any of the things that we had planned. And getting beyond that and coming up with new creative ideas to reach out to keep people and keep our community engaged.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron. James, how's your audio? Looks like not so good. James, how about in the chat? Why don't you, and John, you too, why don't you tell us biggest fundraising problem? And
if I may cut in a little, yeah, but there are two Jameses on here.
Oh, jeez, I'm sorry. James Martinez. Thanks, James. Thank you both for doing that. Carmen, how about you?
Okay, so I'm from Fresno, California. Currently, I'm the manager of community leadership with the nonprofit Go Public Schools Fresno. And I'm also the chair for the California Latina Democrats. I'm a treasurer for the ACLU Fresno chapter. So yeah, I guess same thing. We've been struggling, with fundraising, particularly a lot for recruiting. You can't really host events, so that's been a real challenge, recruitment. But I'm thinking for this, we're having to recruit. We give classes, leadership classes to our parents for my regular job. And so right now it's trying to think how do you recruit these parents, right? And it's going to have to rely largely on posting in a lot of groups, local groups within Facebook, participating on WhatsApp groups as well. Just looking at all the media that there exists, Instagram or whatever, making commercials and just airing them on all these different platforms. So it's going to be challenging, but it's doable.
Excellent. It is challenging. There's no question. And my hope is to make it at least slightly more doable. James Martinez posted in the challenge, the biggest challenge I'm encountering is the lack of funds due to unemployment. Yes, that is true for so many people right now. James, would you mind, James Martinez, would you mind sharing whether it's you that's facing facing unemployment, or just people that you're asking for money that are facing unemployment right now? And John Acosta from Fresno, presently in San Diego, assisting my mom during the COVID crisis, commuting back and forth between Fresno and San Diego. God bless you. You must be so tired. One of my challenges is asking people for money. Absolutely. And James, prospective donors. Thank you, James. No, that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Eileen. Oh, video.
My video's on now. Sorry, I was helping a young child finish their math work.
Excellent.
So my husband is in San Diego, and I'm here taking care of our 3 daughters. I work as associate director for a nonprofit called the AIM Center, which we work with teachers, mostly professional development and support. And so it's been interesting to see the going back and forth of opening buildings or closing buildings, but the governor has made that very clear, at least for Fresno County. And so one thing that is challenging is managing time. I'm experiencing it myself, but the time that a person has to do Zoom events like this and managing added roles that we have now as parents. So that's one of the challenges I see with the current environment and time that we're living in right now.
Well said. Very well said. Thank you. And I see that you and John are, you know each other. It's a pleasure to meet you. Fernando, congratulations on your city council run.
Thank you. Yeah, so some of the challenges that I've been facing, similar to everybody, you know, I have a background in automotive service industry as a service advisor. So I'm not necessarily turning the nuts and bolts, but, you know, I'm selling the services to the customers. So I have more of a sales background. And so, you know, you put me in front of a family, I'm able to kind of, you know, explain to them what my goals are, what my vision is, you know, what plans I want to put into action. But when there's the disconnect of not having the ability to be in front of a family, you know, go door to door, it just makes it that much harder. You know, the city that I'm running for city council is Sanger, and 85% of our citizens are Hispanic, you know, not really more on the web side, you know, they're just kind of like, you know, communication wide is word of mouth, you know, is what mainly we've seen here. So one thing that me and Enrique are working on, we're trying to really amplify our skills online, launching our website, you know, creating a GoFundMe account just to funnel in some traffic and some donations from, you know, our friends, family, neighbors, other members of the community, and just trying to stay up with the times and trying to get more on the technological side of things and seeing how that is going to help us out for our campaign.
Awesome. Thank you, Fernando. Enrique, did we get you yet?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right, go for it.
I was talking to my mentor the other day. His name is Gary Cocola, and Gary Cocola is the owner of Cocola Broadcasting in Fresno. He manages over 30 television stations, and I was asking him, what can be done to get the word out? And he says, well, use the leverage of video and the internet. Even though I've done info commercials for many businesses, I work with attorneys, real estate people. We've done info commercials on the mass media, but now the mass media is the internet. And I think Fernando's tapping into that, and I'm hoping that we'll have the success of getting the word out through Facebook, because for some reason, and I hope I don't get spanked, but I see all the ladies with these big phones, they're all on Facebook. And I think that's going to be our market, because it's hard to go out there right now. That's just my update comment.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's right. Facebook has become even more important. Carlotta, last but not least.
Sorry about that. Hi. I would say for me, my biggest challenge is I'm supporting an awesome candidate. However, she's challenging an incumbent that like snaps up all of the like political endorsements. So I'm looking of how to, I would say, beef up her message, beef up, the buying power in a sense for the people to not only donate to her, but also to vote for her.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, thank you all for sharing. It sounds like we got some common themes, not unsurprising. It's hard to raise money, and it's hard to raise money for a couple things. Number one, it's hard as an individual to ask people for anything, not just money, anything. We have been taught, I grew up in Georgia. It was beat into my head from a very young age. First of all, we didn't talk about politics. Second of all, if we were going to talk about politics, we certainly wouldn't ask anybody for anything. Definitely not money, and we definitely wouldn't talk about money. So there's all sorts of internal hangups around money. Guilt because we don't have enough. Guilt because we have too much. Guilt because we're asking somebody for something and they may not have enough, but they might feel guilty and give us money. James Williams said the best way to start a fight is to talk about money, politics, or religion. Amen. It's such a difficult thing, but it doesn't have to be. I look at money like other people look at votes. Money is a tool. And a lot of the people that we talk to are balancing time and money. Eileen, you talked about this a little bit. Your time is at a premium. And for a lot of people right now, their time is at a premium. And while they would love to go out and knock on doors for you every Saturday between now and the election, and I'm using knock on doors illustratively because, of course, nobody's knocking on anybody's door right this second. A lot of people would love to go knock on doors. The reality is a lot of people can't. They have jobs on Saturdays. They can't. It's much easier for them to give you $20 or to give you $50 than it is for them to go out and put in the hard work and the time. For other people, their time is less valuable than their money. I know there have been a lot of times when my bank account was at $20 or $50, and I was not going to give somebody a $20 check and not have any money in my bank account. But I was perfectly willing to go make some phone calls, to go write some postcards, to go do some letters. So when we're asking people for money, what we're really doing is giving them a different version of how to get involved in our campaign. It's not a better version. It's not a worse version. It's a different version. And I'm saying campaign, I'm going to talk from a political perspective, but those of you who run nonprofits should know that this translates just as much to your nonprofit. People have time to get involved as a volunteer, clean up parks, things like that, or they just write the check. And for a lot of people, especially wealthy people, writing a check is a lot easier than getting them to go and knock on a door. I know that Bill Gates would probably not ever go knock on doors for me if I ran for city council. But if I knew Bill Gates, maybe he'd write a check. So this is that's kind of the baseline that I want to work from today. That money is not the story that we tell of money. Money is just a tool. Yeah, Jeff Bezos, exactly. Money is just a tool. And there is a proven process by which we can raise money during coronavirus times as well. And I think one of the greatest gifts, and I hesitate to use that word in the face of this immense national tragedy, but one of the greatest gifts that coronavirus has given us is it has pulled us away from events, which are actually incredibly difficult ways to raise money. Raise your hand if you're on video. Raise your hand if you've published an event if you've thrown an event before. Oh yeah, almost everybody. Okay, so nod your head if the logistics of that event planning was difficult. Yeah, okay, everybody's on the same page. So events are very tricky ways to raise money, and they don't seem like it on the surface. But when you factor in your time cost, how much it costs you to run to the grocery store to get the cheese platter and the cups and to make sure that the speaker is showing up on time and doing what they said they're going to do. And oh, Mary Ann, the host, is now saying that she doesn't want to be a host anymore. Well, okay, we got to go find somebody else to be a host instead of Mary Ann. Events are so hard. And there are easier ways of raising money than events. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not missing events. We're all missing events a lot, and events are a critical part of all of our fundraising, but it's just one piece. And so I'm here to kind of give you the other pieces. I want to read you some statistics about coronavirus to give you a sense of where the country is right now. So 5% of people are giving less money than they were before. 6% of people are giving more money than they were before. 14% of people plan on giving less money. 22 or 33%, depending on which study you read, there's a couple of them, between 22 and 33% are giving more money or planning on giving more money. So what that tells us is that actually things are about the same. There are people who dropped off, and there are people who stepped up because they had the resources and they saw the national crisis. And what that ended up being, where everybody thought it would go like this, it actually kind of ended up like this. We've seen the same thing after other tragedies. We've seen the same thing after tsunamis. We saw the same thing after 9/11. It took the country about 2 months to like get their bearing and find out what was going on. And then things picked up right back the way they were before. There is one really big exception to this, and I cannot overstate it. It's the economy. So far, there have been pockets of the economy that have been dramatically affected, but they are pockets. I believe, and I think you might believe this too, that if we don't do something soon, those pockets will expand, and our economy is going to get hit a whole lot worse than it already has been hit. Donations track with our economy and our economic progress. So if things get worse economically, they will certainly get worse on the donation side as well. But we have to adjust. And so the way that we're going to adjust is I'm going to give you a little acronym, and I'm going to tell you what all of the words stand for. And then we're going to kind of work through each step to figure out how to maximize these processes for you. So if you have a pen and paper, write it down. If not, I can email it to you afterwards. Here we go. James Williams is ready. All right. The acronym is PQUAC, the F up. And I'm being polite in case there are children within hearing distance. PQUAC, the F up. Carmen, see, I learned my lesson last time. Prospect, qualify, ask, commit, thank you, follow up, upgrade. These are the 7 stages. I'll repeat them one more time just because I know I'm going fast. Prospect, qualify, ask, commit, thank you, follow up, upgrade. Put it in the chat if you need me to repeat it. Give me a thumbs up if you're good to go. Awesome. Okay. So every fundraising process, whether you're raising $100 million or whether you're raising $1,000, starts with prospecting, qualifying, asking, committing, thank you, follow up, and finishes with the upgrade. Prospecting is figuring out who's out there. Qualifying is figuring out who you're going to talk to. You don't need to write this down. I'll send it to you. Asking is just that. Committing, getting the commitment from somebody. Thank yous, so important. First of all, just to be a nice person, but second of all, because you want them to give again. You don't want this to be the one-time gift. Getting the first gift is the hardest. The second and third gift, those should be easier. That's thank you. Follow up, making sure that they stay involved in what you got going on, and upgrade. Okay, with your permission, we're going to go ahead and start with prospecting, which is by far the scariest. All of these things get less and less scary as they go down the pipeline. But prospecting is the scariest because all of us feel emotional and vulnerable about asking people for money. And prospecting is where you get your whole list of people together and you figure out how much money you can actually ask from people. So Fernando, I'm going to pick on you since you're actually running for office here. When you're running for office, so tell me again where you're running for city council?
Sanger, California.
Sanger. Okay, so if you're in Sanger, what's the population of Sanger?
I think I have it all up right now. There's a lot of numbers I'm looking at.
That's all right. I'll put you on the spot.
Yeah.
So Sanger's. It's not San Francisco though. It's not Oakland. It's a
Small township.
small town. Yeah. So are you raising money exclusively in Sanger?
No.
Okay. I imagine not. You're probably going to take money from all sorts of places all over California, wherever your friends and family live. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. If Fernando was my client, he and I would sit down together day one and I would say, okay, Fernando, it's time for me to have the password to your Gmail, or your email, whatever you use, Yahoo, whatever. It's time for me to have the password to your iCloud or wherever your contacts are on your phone, because what we're going to do is put together a giant list of everybody you've ever met. Anybody who recognized the name Fernando. Oh, Fernando, I remember him from high school. I remember him from college. We're going to put together that list of people. You're going to use LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, old high school yearbooks. I had a candidate one time who looked through the phone book. Literally, remember we used to have phone books. The young people on the call don't remember. We had phone books. Looked through all the names in the phone books and highlighted the people that he knew. Why do this? Such a laborious process. Well, it's because we only want to do it once. We want to gather this list of people and spend this time finding this list of people, because the next thing that we're going to do is figure out who on this list can give us money. And by creating this list, what we're really saying is all of these people are my network. And for the purposes of my campaign, again, I'm using Fernando, for the purposes of Fernando's campaign, he needs to raise as much money as he can from those folks. Now, there are going to be folks, there's a couple different groups, and we're going to get into this here in a second, but that's prospecting. It's all the individuals who can give you a gift. It also includes, if you're running a political campaign, your natural allies. This is unions, PACs, anybody who's involved in that world. It also includes people who are the enemies of the person you're running against. Emily's list calls these people with an axe to grind. And I think it's a very appropriate moniker. We're talking, so Fernando, are you running against somebody? Is this an open seat?
Yes, there's a current incumbent, and then there's potentially another candidate.
All right, the other candidate doesn't matter. You're going to beat the pants off of them. Let's worry about the incumbent.
Thank you.
And don't tell me their name. I'm going to call him Bob Incumbent. Okay. Tell me about Bob Incumbent. How much money do they have?
I imagine that they're not gonna have issues as much as I'm having with fundraising.
Great. Okay. And they've been on city council before. Have they made any enemies?
I'm sure. From what I hear, there's a lot of people that are not quite happy with a couple recent decisions.
Okay. What kind of decisions?
So for example, in Sanger, we have a Measure S fund. That's a public safety fund that different departments pull from. This year in particularly, the youth category was, the budget was removed, partly due to because there's not like a lot of youth programs that are running because of the COVID-19.
Okay, so Bob is taking money from children.
Basically.
Okay, terrible. I already don't like it. So, Bob Incumbent is taking money from children. Well, I know somebody right off the top of my head who cares deeply about children. Carmen, will you tell me who are the organizations just in this area? Like, who cares about kids in this area?
Educators, parents,
Absolutely.
We all care about children. Everybody. I don't think I know anybody who doesn't care about children.
Yeah, perfect. This is easy. So everybody cares about children, or at least everybody purports to care about children. Hopefully they do. Some more than others. So if we have this type of situation where Bob is taking money from the children, what I want to do is go to anybody with an axe to grind. So that's if there's educators unions, we're going to them. If there are charter school principals, we're going to them. It doesn't matter, union, whatever. Public school, private school, if they're involved in education and Bob Incumbent took money from the kids, those are the people with the axe to grind. And we're going to make a list of everybody we can think of. And now you're starting to think, oh my gosh, Noah, this list is hundreds of people long. It might even be thousands of people long. Yeah, it is. Sorry, Enrique. I'm going to make your work harder. We're going to make a big, long list of people, and then we're going to do qualifying. Before we move on to qualifying, does anybody have any questions about prospecting? Beautiful.
Well,
James.
one thing that I heard, a way to prospect is you have an issue. We were just talking about Bob candidate and children, but you go to the aquarium. And they love to put their donor walls. So you put together your speech about why we like fish, and you just amazingly get a picture of every donor they had. It not only prospects, but it qualifies because they have their 500,000 and above donors. They have their 499 to 100,000. You do that when you go to the opera or the symphony. You make sure you get the program and you look who their donors are. You go over to the community college where they just did a massive restoration, and you look at the people that donated to help that, and you hit them on the historical society side of it. Is that a viable thing to do?
Absolutely, absolutely. So what you're talking about is the final ring. So we start with family and friends. Picture a target. We start with family and friends. People who will give to you, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, whatever you believe, they put a diaper on you, they'll give you money, they love you. Those people. Then we go to your allies. Then we go to people with an axe to grind. And what James just described is exactly right. The final rung of people are the people who give to progressive causes broadly. Those checks are often the biggest. Those people are the hardest to raise money from. We do it last because, believe it or not, the difficulty of raising money from them balances out the size of their checks. Especially in a political race when you may have a contribution limit. Fernando, do you have a contribution limit? Enrique, does Fernando have a contribution limit?
No.
Okay, great. So a lot of races do have a contribution limit. However, you're exactly right. If you are seeing something, especially locally, if you're seeing something at like the local theater, like a production of your kid's school, start highlighting these names, save these names, add them to your database. We're going to contact everybody. And then qualifying is how we decide who to contact first. The closer the relationship is, the better the easier it is going to be to raise for them, whether they are a Democrat, a Republican, or otherwise. If they are close to you, it will be easy to raise money. So what we're going to do, once we have this big list of names, I'm pretending that it's in Excel. You can do it on a notebook paper too if you want to. I would recommend something on the computer. You have two columns next to these names. Column number 1 is going to be ask to give. This is the one you all knew was coming. This is the gut check for everybody who's ever been involved in fundraising, because it's the slimiest, skeeziest thing in the world. What you're going to do is put a dollar amount next to each person. And the whole time you're doing it, you're going to be thinking, I can't believe that I'm assigning a dollar value to my friend Jimmy that we grew up with. We were in high school together. We went to the fishing pool. We went fishing together. We went snorkeling together. And now I'm calling him $300 Jimmy. This seems terrible. It's not what we're doing. And you have to remember this over and over again as we put these numbers down. What we're doing is giving Jimmy the opportunity to give, and we want to ask him for an amount of money that is not going to insult him or embarrass him. And I say both of these things because they're both important. Number 1, If Jimmy's having a hard time, let's say Jimmy is unemployed right now. I'm not going to ask Jimmy for a lot of money because that would embarrass him. But if Jimmy is doing well, let's say Jimmy's a big shot lawyer, I don't want to insult him by asking for an amount of money that's too low. And that second part is the one that people forget. I've had many more people get insulted by a low amount than I have get embarrassed by a high amount. So, but your gut will know. And it's important just to kind of do this on gut instinct. Don't have some kind of formula for how much you think they make and whether their kids are in private school or whatever. Just trust your gut. You can go down and figure out, this guy's a super successful engineer. Maybe you can give me $1,000. This woman is a very successful attorney. Maybe she can give me $5,000. This is a public school teacher, $20, $50. You have a good gut instinct for this. So you're going to start writing down next to all these names an amount of money. If the amount of money is too low, and I used to tell people what a low amount was, I don't do that anymore because everything is so completely different. You're going to want an amount of money that's too low. Let's say, Fernando, for you, let's say it's $100 or $50. If the amount of money is lower than $50, just go ahead and delete that person from your list. Don't worry about it. We'll call them to be a volunteer later on. They're going to go knock on doors or put up yard signs or do whatever else.
So what you're saying is to decide on a figure.
That's exactly right. We're going to decide for them. We're not going to let them decide.
Okay.
Here's the reason why. When we decide, that number is 37% higher than when they decide. And it's not because it's what they can afford. It's because people are confused about how much to give. And if we don't set a benchmark, then they kind of, I don't know, I'm just going to give whatever feels safe. And they default to the safest thing. If we're deciding the amounts are 37% higher. And not for running up the score. That means you have to do 37% less calls, 37% less emails, 37% less time fundraising. It's hard to ask people for specific dollar amounts. We're going to get to that, but it's super, super important. So that's column number one. Column number two, occasionally you will come across somebody who has a great network, and those people can raise you money. In this area, in the area where I live, which is Dublin, developers are almost always in this category. Real estate developers raise money from other real estate developers. So column number two is going to be, how much money can they raise me? Most people won't have anything in this column, but some people will. And you can always ask somebody to raise you money. If you're not sure, like 5 times what you're asking them to give is about right. Because then you can say, oh, you're giving me $20. Do you know 5 people who can also give me $20? Yeah, maybe I do. And that's another way of prospecting. You're expanding your list that way. So column number 1, what they can give. Column number 2, what they can raise. That's how we qualify. Does anybody have any questions about qualifying? Perfect. You're going to start with the people you know. Big amounts. Work your way down to the smaller amounts of the people you don't know. Okie dokie. Thumbs up, you're still with me. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Together, we're going to help Fernando win this election. Okay, now comes the fun part, asking. Asking during coronavirus is different. This is the one way that it's different. Here is what I recommend, a phone-based strategy. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go ahead and apologize right now. Phone calling is hard. It's so hard. And you're talking to somebody whose vanity plate on his car says call time. So I may not be the right person to sympathize with you here. But phone calling, before coronavirus, phone calling was the most effective way to raise money. Dollars per time. After coronavirus, it's the most effective way by a long shot because now we don't have events in the picture. phone calling is everything. And it still is. Dialing for dollars. James is exactly right. And here's what I recommend. Number one, you got a list of people you want to talk to that day. Where do you get that list? You already made it. You're not going to run out of names. You have tons of names on this list. If you run out, we'll talk about how to do that later. But right now, you're not going to run out of names. So let's say you have 50 names that you want to talk to today. You could go through, and as many of them as know you, you're going to text them. And you're going to start every morning with that text. And the text is going to say, hey, I wanted to talk to you about my campaign. Do you have time today? And I bet 20 of those 50 are going to text you back and say, yeah, how's 2 o'clock? How's 2:30? How's 1:30? All of a sudden, you're not bothering people. They're setting appointments with you. Boom. Easy. So much easier. All right. Now we've done our text messages. That took a little while, but we just had one copied and pasted and, ran through our list. Now we're going to call people. Most of them will send us to voicemail. That's fine. Don't think that that's you. This is the story candidates start to tell themselves. Oh, so-and-so has sent me to voicemail 3 times. I sent 2 people to voicemail while we're sitting here talking. No, people just send people to voicemail. This is the world in which we live. It doesn't mean they don't love you. It doesn't mean they're not going to call you back. They just sent you to voicemail. So we're going to leave voicemails. And we're going to leave voicemails every 3 days for 4 straight times. And then we're going to stop bothering these people, because if somebody has left you 4 straight voicemails and they haven't called you back, they don't want to talk to you. 4 voicemails, a voicemail every 3 days. This is my prescription for you. I have tested it. I've tried every 5 days. I've tried every 2 days. This works. Trust me. And if you find something that works better, let me know. Test it out. After every voicemail, send them an email if you have their address. Hey, just left you a voicemail. Wanted to let you know, my name is Fernando Lopez. I'm running for city council. This is my donation link. Give me a call back when you can. Okay. Now we're doing this. And you see how there's a process. And Eileen might be saying to herself, oh my God, this sounds like it'll take so much time. Yes, it does. It does. I'm so sorry it does. But that's why we start with the folks who can write these big checks, so that you can focus all of your time doing this kind of work, and other people can be supporting you in these other areas because you started to pay them a little bit of money. For example, you're not writing speeches if you have a speechwriter. Fernando has an Enrique who's helping him. Fernando doesn't need to write his speeches. Enrique will write his speeches. Oops, sorry, I got people coming in here. So that's prospecting, qualifying. The beautiful part of the ask is going to be in the phrasing of the ask itself. So I'm going to teach you bullet points of a script, and then I'm going to teach you a magic phrase that you can use to get discounts on your coffee at Starbucks. All right. The bullet points of your list is this, and this applies to nonprofits too. It doesn't sound like it will, but it does. Bullet points of your list. Why I'm running. I will win. Personal commitment. Thank you. That's it. So, Fernando, put you on the spot again. I appreciate you letting me be I appreciate you being my guinea pig. Why are you running, Fernando?
Well, I'm running basically because what I had mentioned before, how the funding had been removed from the youth organizations, and I've been involved in Cal Ripken baseball, and I've been coaching with them the last few years, and both of my kids play baseball as well, and I just feel like we all have issues as adults, and there's going to be problems in politics, but we can't forget that the kids are the future, and so we really need to have a platform for them to be able to succeed even in times that we're facing right now as adults.
Perfect. Fernando, why are you running? Because we can't forget that kids are the future. That's it. That's why he's running. And
Perfect.
And your length, by the way, I'm not shortening your length. Your length was perfect at that, Fernando. Like the story that you told about the funding being cut, about coaching baseball, that's perfect. That's what you want. Why I'm running. And then the next one, I will win. Fernando, why will you win? You're running against an incumbent who has more money.
I'll win because everyone cares about the kids.
Nah, give me a real reason.
I'm gonna win because I'm working hard. I'm doing all the things some of the things that we're talking about. I'm working hard.
Your
and I'm
opponent's working hard.
communicating with all the members of our community, and I'm passionately trying to reach out to everyone and really like get an idea of how people feel about this situation.
All right, here's why I'm going to put Fernando on the spot. His opponent's working hard. His opponent wants to win. His opponent says that he's passionate. And here's what I want from you, Fernando. I want a number.
Okay.
It could be any number. It could be the poll shows I'm ahead. It could be he may have more money than me, but I outraised him last quarter. It could be I've knocked on 3,700 doors, and I don't think he's knocked on any. I want some number from you that proves to me that you are viable, because otherwise I'm not going to give you a dime. How many of you can just show nodding your heads, how many of you have had friends who are running for office and they say, oh, will you give me money? And you're like, you don't have a prayer. Why are you running for that office? Have you met these people? Yeah, a lot of head nodding. Yeah, okay. We all know these people. One of them called me last week. My friend Billy, she's my age. She's running for Congress against an incumbent. Not a shot, not a prayer. I'm not going to give Billy money. I love Billy. I'm not going to give Billy money. The number one reason why somebody gives you money is viability. They've done study after study on this. And this is true of nonprofits too. I want to know that my money given to a nonprofit is not wasted. I don't want to just throw money away. Money is so valuable. And it's so hard to give. Nazreen, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. It's so hard to get money. Why would I just give it away to somebody that I think is going to waste it? Viability is the word you want to remember. So why I'm running, I will win. Fernando, give me one more shot. Tell me why you're going to win.
Okay, so I'm going to win because I'm actively using my voter registration cards that I got from the county office to help people get registered to vote that haven't voted in the past.
How many
Primarily
people?
our youth.
How many people?
I'm working on 100. That's my target.
Great.
And the reason why is because the last election was decided with about 300 votes. So if I can get an extra 100 votes in there.
Listen to Fernando. The last election was decided by 300 votes. He's registering 100 new people personally. Of course that's viable. Beautiful, beautiful. Why I'm running, I'm going to win. All right, this one's the magic phrase, personal commitment. Would you consider a personal commitment to give X amount of money by Y date? That is the phrase. Here's why it matters. I'm going to skip would you consider for just a second. Would you consider giving a specific amount of money? We already talked about this. Asking for specific amounts, 37% better, 37% less call time, 37% more time with your kids. A specific amount of money. A personal commitment. Sorry, I forgot personal commitment. Personal commitment's a promise. That's what it means. But people get weird if you ask them to promise something. Will you promise? You promise you're going to give me money? Personal commitment makes it sound a little nicer. Would you consider giving me a personal commitment of X amount of money by Y date? The urgency of Y date is so, so, so important. If you don't have a date attached to whatever you're asking for, people are going to think that they're going to do it. My husband asked me to do the dishes. He didn't give me a deadline. I'll do them eventually, maybe. Yeah, this is how it works. This is how it works. If you don't have a deadline, it doesn't get done. Okay, now going back to would you consider. Why do I say would you consider? Because if they say no, then I don't have to say see ya. The very next thing is I say, what would you consider? It's like butter. It's like butter. I want you to develop your own scripts that are beautiful and perfect and your own stories. But this one sentence, I want you to keep word for word because it's magic. Would you consider a personal commitment of X amount of money by Y date? And the next time you go to Starbucks, go to the barista and say, would you consider a 15% discount on this latte today? And they say, why? I don't know. Tell you why I'm running for office. Why I'm running for office, I'll win. You could do the same kind of thing. I live in the community. I come here all the time. And I think that I'm going to be a regular customer for you. Would you consider giving me a 15% discount on this latte? I've had people say yes. When I take on a new candidate in pre-COVID times, I'd take them to Starbucks and I'd make them do this. Because if they can do this with a Starbucks stranger, they can do it with other people. And it's the same kind of awkwardness. It's the awkwardness we talked about. It's asking for something that you feel like you really don't deserve. It's exactly right. It is political hazing. But it also gives me a sense of whether they're willing to step up and do the hard thing. Because if they can do that weird hard thing, they can do all sorts of much easier things. Personal commitment. Does anybody have questions on those three so far? And then we'll get to the other two. Great. Thank you. People forget to say thank you. It's so important to say thank you. It doesn't cost you anything. Everybody loves to hear thank you. It makes us feel special. There's studies after studies after studies to show you this, but you don't need studies to know that it's nice to say thank you. And then if they've said yes, you're going to then give them your information. And Fernando, this is where the GoFundMe comes in. If you're raising off of GoFundMe, or you're raising off of ActBlue, or if you're raising off of PayPal or NGP, or whatever you're using to process your gifts, this is where you'd say, here's my website. I'm going to text it you. I'm going to email it to you. Do this with everybody, whether they want you to or not. They're going to say, oh, no, don't email me. It's fine. I'll get it. Just send them an email, just in case. Here's the email. You want everybody to have the information. Once everybody has the information, then the gift comes through. That's it for the script. So we're prospect, qualify, and ask. That's the commitment. Thank yous. Send thank you notes. Send them as personally as you can. Follow-ups. If somebody's promised you money and they have not given it to you yet, this is my suggestion for your process. 10 days, 7 days, 5 days, 3 days. If you promise me money, I'll give you 10 days to give me the check. Then I'll reach out again. If I don't hear from you, I'll give you 7 more days. If I don't hear from you, I'll give you 5 more days. And then 3 days. And then every 3 days until you give me the check or you say I can't do it. Once you've promised me something, I want to hold you accountable to that promise. Or just tell me you can't do it. And then that's fine. Remove you from the list. So that is that. I want to allow for a little bit of time at the end. I know I'm running a little bit longer than I wanted to. I want to allow a little bit of time at the end for Zoom calls and how they work and how you can raise money off of Zoom calls, because that's the new event and you're going to do like 15-20% of your money raising through Zoom calls. But I wanted to, the prospect, quality, ask a commit, thank you, follow up, upgrade. Upgrade is just, it doesn't matter if you're in politics, you're not going to do upgrades. If you're running for political campaigns, you're just going to ask people for the same amount of money they gave before. If you gave me $100 last month, will you give me $100 this month? If you're a nonprofit and you're getting bigger gifts once a year, ask for those gifts to be increased by about 10 to 15% in the next year. That's an upgrade. That was a lot. Basically just took the entire fire hose and shoved it down onto you. So now you have all of these statistics and all this information and you have a process. I would love to hear from you now about the questions that you have about phone fundraising. Then I'll do 10 minutes on Zoom and then a whole bunch of just Q&A about whatever you want. But for phone fundraising specifically, does anybody have questions?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
So do you recommend us doing the phone fundraising calls ourselves when it comes to the voicemails, or a phone bank system would help?
Great question. Great question. If you are raising money, this is not true in every circumstance. If in general, if you are raising money, certainly for your race, Fernando, if you're raising money, you should be doing the phone calls yourselves. Joe Biden has a pretty extensive phone banking system. And that's just because there's a lot of money to be raised by people that are not named Joe Biden, and Joe Biden is busy running around the country. You are going to have just so much better success if you do it yourself. It's hard enough to get people to give money to you. It's so hard to get money to people to give money to a volunteer or an intern. What you can outsource, if you really have to, is the pledge chasing. If somebody's promised you money and they haven't given it to you yet, you can have volunteers and other people. It's actually kind of nicer sometimes to have volunteers and other people say, hey, Fernando asked me to give you a call because he wanted to make sure you had all of his information. We're really counting on your $1,000 check by Friday. So you could outsource that, Fernando, but the actual calls themselves, I would do yourself. And for that reason, very important for you to use your time wisely and to not call people that are going to waste your time or burden your time unnecessarily.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. And on that note, any more than 5 minutes of phone call and you're probably hanging on too long. Okay. Yeah. Woo. I should take a breath. That was fun. Oh man, I love talking about fundraising. Thank you guys for just sitting and listening to me ramble about fundraising. It's my very favorite thing. Let's talk about Zoom calls. This is a Zoom call, of course, so I assume you're all familiar with the platform. Are people basically doing 9-10 Zoom calls a day at this point? Yeah, this is true. This is true across the political spectrum right now. There are ways to do Zoom calls successfully and raise money. People got really, you lost count after 5. Yes. People got really excited about Zoom during the early days of quarantine, and Zoom fundraisers were raising a lot of money. I think that's less true now. However, it's still a useful way to gather people together and to have interesting interactions between people and to do things like what we're doing right now. See each other's faces, remember that other people exist and that you're not alone in this godforsaken world. So Zoom calls are great for that reason. And they also engender a lot of excitement. I would treat Zoom calls the same way I treated events, which is raise all the money you want to raise on the Zoom call before the Zoom call. Send your invitation with a donation link. Call all of the heavy hitters who are on your invitation list and do that same call time process that we just talked about. Make sure there are people who are part of the Zoom call who know that part of being part of the Zoom call is to write a check. And that will bring in, I'd like to see you bring in like 60-75% of the money that you've allotted towards the Zoom call before the Zoom. Much easier to raise before the Zoom than it is to raise after. However, you can still raise after. So you're going to have an email before the event. You're going to have the event. At the event, I have been on this is a pet peeve. Let's talk about this. People who don't ask during Zoom fundraisers. The rules aren't different because it's Zoom. You should have somebody do an introduction and then ask. You should have the candidate speak and then ask. At the very end, somebody should wrap up and then ask. Somebody in the chat should ask, hey, make sure that you're committing financially to the success of this candidate or this nonprofit. It's so important that you make a personal commitment to give X amount of money by Y date. All of that can happen in Zoom just like it can happen on the phone or in an email or in a text message. And then at the very end, you're going to send a wrap up. Thank you so much for attending such and such a Zoom. Here is the link to donate. If you do your Zooms by registration, which you can integrate that into NGP. If you're using NGP, you can do just a regular Zoom registration. However you're registering people, you're going to have their emails, and you're going to know who gave and who didn't. Just like you would at a fundraiser, chase them down, get their money. I've been to so many Zooms for free that I should not have been on because people gave me the link, but they didn't, nobody chased me down for a contribution. Everybody is in this boat right now. And I try to avoid using phrases like chase them down and hit them up, because I really think what we're doing is beautiful. And I think what we're doing is giving people an opportunity to make change. And really what we're doing is saying, I want you to be involved. If you're not going to knock on doors, if you're not going to make phone calls, then this is what I want. But we have to be tenacious about it, because human nature is to do the very bare minimum to feel like we're doing something amazing. We see this with every social movement that's happened on Facebook. I'm going to share a status that makes me feel like I'm doing something, but I'm not going to call my congressman. I'm not going to go protest. I'm going to hit like, and that's going to make me feel like I did something. We do the bare minimum, all of us. I haven't done the dishes yet. All of us do the bare minimum. That's okay. There's no judgment there. That's human nature. But it's our job as activists and organizers and rabble-rousers and ne'er-do-wells to get people to step their game up a little bit. I'm involved in something right now, trying to get wealthy people to give 1% of their net worth to save democracy. One person I called said, 1%? It should be 10%. Everybody should be giving as much as they can. Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you. That was not for you. I had somebody who wrote a $1 million check, but we knew that it wasn't 1%. So we emailed back and said, thank you very much. That's very generous. It wasn't 1%. And she's like, you're right. I know. I've been thinking a lot about this over the weekend. I'm going to write a $10 million check. That's our job. With one email, we brought $9 million more into the movement that we wouldn't have brought into the movement. That's a huge example. What we're doing are small examples, but they mean exactly the same thing. If we ask appropriately and we're doing our jobs well, people like Fernando get elected. And when people like Fernando get elected, they save funding for children. And children don't go join gangs. Children don't go join, like terrible things. Children get education they need. Children go to better schools. Children have more food on the table. Parents have more time with their kids. These things have generational impact. And Fernando's just one person, but he has impact on 500 people, and then 5,000 people, and then 15,000 people. And when Fernando's governor, he remembers us. Right, Fernando? Of
course.
All right, good. Just making sure. Okay, that's it. You're tired of hearing me rant. Does anybody have any questions about Zooms, or shall we just jump right into the meat? Perfect. All right, let's go. Open forum. And anybody who needs to leave, feel free to leave. But anybody who wants to stay, I will answer all of your questions until you're tired of hearing me talk.
Hello, this is Enrique. I just want to thank you for your time. I learned a lot. You mentioned Fernando governor. Well, one of our last candidates in this area, which is in the position that he's going in, became senator. So we're very close to going to the next level, but we got to start now. How do I spell your name correctly, your first name and last name?
Oh, sure. My name is Noah Mayer, Noahmaier. And if you pronounce it Meyer, that's fine too. Like, that's the way it's supposed to be pronounced. My family is just wrong.
M-A-I-E-R. Do you have a website for
Sure.
what you do?
Yep.
Okay. What's that?
My last name, Mayer, M-A-I-E-R. And then Anderson is my business partner. ANDERSON.com. Or you can go to mayorfundraising.com. It'll also take you there. And don't make fun of my embarrassing website.
No, not because we got some other projects that are going to need your services, and I just want to, get this information out there. So
Just
I'm sure you like buying In-N-Out hamburgers just like I do, and we need pocket change, to get that going.
Man,
too.
we all need more In-N-Out hamburgers in our lives. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, thank you for that, Enrique. That's very kind. But the other thing I'll say to the group too is this is a labor of love for me. So don't feel like you have to write a check to ask me a question. My contact information is readily available. I'll put it in the chat right now. And I want you to feel free to bug me, because as you can see, I really love talking about this, and I would talk about it all day long as much as I possibly could. What other questions can I answer for you? Let's see here. We had some questions earlier about managing time. Should I talk about that a little bit? Okay, James is giving me a thumbs up. Managing time is always hard. There's no easy way to do it. It's going to be different for every person. In my ideal world, any political candidate is spending 7 days a week, 8 hours a day raising money. Sometimes they do, and when they do, they're really successful. Jamie Harrison in South Carolina is one of those right now. Literally 7 days a week, 8 hours a day, and he's just been putting together a phenomenal campaign. However, most of us have lives and kids and jobs and like other things, Netflix. So what I would hope, yeah, James says a third. That's kind of, I don't always say that because it's so very dependent on the candidate. But yeah, as a general rule of thumb, a third of your time at least should be spent fundraising if you're running for office. It's just I think the answer to that question is spend way more time than you think you should raising money, because that money allows you to do things that you wouldn't otherwise be allowed to do. The name of the game in an election is targeted voter communication. That's it. That's all that an election is targeted voter communication. If you're targeting people and you know who they are, you know who you need to reach. Like Aaron's working on something in DC right now, so like we know that we need to talk to people in DC. We're communicating with them. How do we do it? Sometimes it's just a newspaper. Sometimes we need to pay for it. Television commercials, radio ads, little postcards, business cards, whatever. Yard signs. That's targeted voter communications. Aaron, we can talk later about whether yard signs are actually targeted or not, but for the sake of this conversation, we're going to say targeted. To simplify things, we're going to say targeted voter communication. Carlotta, you were asking about endorsements earlier. Lost Carlotta. Endorsements are important for the reason that we talked about, viability. It's just another way to say that your poll numbers are great, you're raising more money than your opponent, you're knocking on more doors than your opponent. If you have the endorsements of people, then you get to say that as that part of your phone call. When you say why I'll win, that's where your endorsements come in.
Talking about endorsements, let's say you get somebody the whole world loves, Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
Mother Teresa endorsed me. And can you then hold a fundraiser, or Mother Teresa loves me, you need to love me too, like a principal? Who is your principal? And you can name this person, Mother Teresa. She likes me. You should give money. Is that another thing that endorsements do for you?
Absolutely, absolutely. I have actually had a funny moment recently on a campaign that I was not working on. Had a discussion about, it was LeBron James and Barack Obama hosting a fundraiser, and LeBron James's team and Barack Obama's team were having a fight over who got listed first on the endorsement. The the answer should have been Barack Obama, just to be clear. Yeah, this happens all the time. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to get the endorsement. I'm going to say Senator Smith. You're going to get the endorsement of Senator Smith. Thank you, Senator Smith, for your endorsement. May I use your name on the website? Yes, you may, of course. May I get a picture with you? Yes, of course. Send the picture of you and Senator Smith to your entire email list. Okay, great. Now, Senator Smith, will you host a fundraiser with me? Yes, it's the Senator Smith fundraiser. Senator Smith hosts Noah Mayer for County Council. Come hear why Senator Smith thinks Noah is the best thing since sliced bread. Amazing. Now we have an event. Now here's the one that people forget. Why don't I send a letter from Senator Smith with Senator Smith's signature on the bottom? Senator Smith can give me this. It says, hey, it's Senator Smith. I'm just sending a letter. It could be a physical letter, an email, to everybody on my list, letting them know that Noah is going to give them a call in a couple of days. I hope you call him back. You might even say Noah's going to be calling from this number. This is all in a letter. Okay, well now everybody on Senator Smith's list went from being a cold call to being a warm call. Endorsements are so powerful for list building. Yeah, so yeah, I can't recommend getting endorsements enough. Especially if you're using them for fundraising purposes. If you're getting them just to rack up the score, it's not worth it. Awesome. Thank you, John. Thank you for joining us today. It's so great to see you. I look forward to maybe one day hearing your voice, but for now, fantastic to see you. Awesome.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Do you have any information or strategies in maybe taking into consideration different cultures and how to ask them for money? Because we live in a very diverse area, and while the money might not be evenly spread, I think there are people who are from different cultures. We have Hmong, we have a lot of Hispanic, Latinos here. Is there different strategies when you're asking for money that you should consider from the different cultures or diversity that you might be asking from?
It's a great question. Yes and no is the answer. I will give you my gross, broad generalizations, but know that every community has their own unique culture and their own unique way of existing in the world. And that my broad strokes answer to this question is not going to necessarily be accurate for every single community. In general, communities who are from China, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, it's much more helpful if the person asking reflects that culture and has a history and understanding and nuance of that culture. I've raised a little bit of money from, let's say, Chinese communities, for example. I ran a race where we had like a third of the district was Chinese. I've raised a little bit of money from the Chinese community. The Chinese community raised a ton of money from the Chinese community. And it was just easier to go to a couple people and say, we know that you're involved. Will you help us with this? And they would say yes or no, and they knew exactly what to do. That's true. I've talked to other friends all around the country, and I think that's true in many different communities, especially Asian communities. The Hispanic community is slightly different. I think that the money that I've raised from the Hispanic community, and again, not an expert, but the money that I've raised from the Hispanic community has been in large part very, very candidate driven. So it's fine if I'm the one doing the asking as a, boring mayonnaise colored white guy. It's fine if I'm the one doing the asking, but that candidate better be dynamite. If that candidate is 20% less than excellent, I've never seen the Hispanic community galvanize around a mediocre candidate. But when they're in, and it's a force of nature. It's dynamite. It's something super cool to watch, because you're exactly right. There are folks in every community. There are folks who don't have a lot, and there are folks who have, the resources that are necessary to dive in deep. And if they have the resources, and you have an amazing candidate, a candidate that understands and will represent their interests, absolutely. I know nothing about the Hmong community. I couldn't even possibly comment. The Indian community tends to be a community based on gatherings, which makes COVID fundraising very hard. That being said, there are networks of people who will be able to, it's very similar to what we might do in like a Chinese community. If you know 5 or 6 people who know how to tap into the right networks, and you come to them honoring the cultural work that has happened, and not as, hey, I want to tell you what to do with your life, but listening and respecting and appreciating the culture that's there, then yeah, you can go a really long way. I've done some fundraising in Native American communities. I was in Tahlequah, Oklahoma for a little while, did some stuff with Cherokee Nation. What was most important there was just listening. And I think that's probably true across cultural boundaries. If you are spending 90% of your time listening and 10% of your time asking, you're going to have a much more successful intercultural interaction.
Okay, no, I got a question. This is Enrique.
What's up, Enrique?
Okay, about 3 weeks ago, I scheduled some time with Fernando, because his district incorporates the downtown business people, which have had a lot of challenges. I personally, we spent about 4 or 5 hours. I introduced them to about 10 business people, owners. They were all impressed with him. They did say, come back when you have your materials. He didn't have his flyers, business cards. And I hope Fernando's listening, because I'm asking him for a report on what happened. He needs to do a follow-up. I'm not sure how to encourage him to do a follow-up to ask for some money.
Sure.
With business people.
Well, I'll give Fernando a chance to defend himself.
Okay. Oh, by the way, his nickname that I gave to him is Rocky.
Very good.
He's always Rocky now.
I know what Enrique's doing. He knows that he could kick me in the butt and get me to work harder, but he knows I'm working hard and I'm following up.
It sounds like you are. It sounds like you are. I mean,
he's trying to use reverse psychology and make me work harder.
Yeah, I see that. No, I think Enrique, your question gets to a larger question, which is, are there physical materials that are helpful in raising money? And the answer,
the question is these business owners, I feel, want to help him, but what would be some wording that Fernando could use as a follow-up when he calls these people or meets with them again to get a donation?
I see. I think your wording is going to be the very same when you're going to say, so that initial part where you say who I am. Oh, hey, I'm Fernando. You met me last week. We met at the store last week. And then you just go right into why I'm running. I'm going to win. Thank you. That same process. You just want to start with that early connection. But you hit on 2 points that I want to hit on too. Number one, the materials. The materials that you print should have exactly the same story that you tell your anybody you're phone calling. Why I'm running, I'm going to win. They don't necessarily have to ask for personal commitment, because you should do that in person. But thank you. If your materials reflect that story consistently, then you can just hand it to somebody at a store and it will have a similar effect to the phone call that you're having. But then you hit on something really interesting, which is the question that campaign staffers have asked since time immemorial. How do I get my candidate to do X thing that my candidate is supposed to do? Oh, so hard. So my very first race was in Macon, Georgia, and our campaign headquarters for an incumbent mayor. And I couldn't get the mayor to do call time. And we tried and tried and tried. And I called a buddy who was working on a different campaign, and he said, just follow him. I said, what do you mean just follow him? Just follow him. So he'd go to, like, when he was supposed to do call time, I'd show up at the mayor's office, and I'd kind of sit in his waiting room. And they'd be like, do you need an appointment? I was like, no, I'm just here for the mayor. He knows why I'm here. And he'd kind of poke his head out, look guilty. Oh, 5 minutes, Noah, 5 minutes. Sounded like Bill Clinton. 5 minutes, Noah. No problem, Mr. Mayor. We come back, and do it again. He raised more money than anybody in Bibb County history. The average voter saw his face on TV 26 times. We destroyed the opponent, who was corrupt and terrible. And now I got a news alert last week that mayor, who's in his final term now, just took down all the Confederate statues in Macon County, or in Bibb County, which is, I mean, it is as deeply Southern as they come. So little things do make a big difference. So what you want to do, Enrique, is if you believe in Fernando, you might believe in Fernando sometimes more than Fernando does. That's okay. That's just par for the course. It's hard for us to believe in ourselves. So what you have to do is just stay consistent. You and Fernando should have a shared spreadsheet. One item should say, what's the last time I contacted X, Y, and Z person? And the other item should say, when's the next time I'm going to contact X, Y, and Z person? And you want to know that those contacts are being made. So if you believe in Fernando, Fernando's going to do what Fernando does. Candidates are going to do what candidates do. They work as hard as they can. But your job, my job, everybody who's in this position, our job is to be the personal trainer. So if your candidate does 20 push-ups and says, I'm done, the personal trainer says 5 more. You can go 5 more. You can do it. Not as a jerk, but as somebody who cares deeply in your success and is so personally committed to your success. So I know you're saying, Fernando didn't follow up. You got to get Fernando to follow up, and Fernando follow up.
Thank you for helping me in that.
Yeah, of course.
Asking the question. So, I mean, we're working to. This is not the first campaign I've been on, so I understand we've made mistakes in the past. He's got a great team helping him. He's got other people that have done campaigns, and we just want to let him not get into the problems that we've been in the past. We're trying to save him all these headaches.
Well, tell me about the problem.
Well, talking to the wrong people, wasting time. There's so many. I mean, there's so many. I can make a list. There's things that we want to avoid. And right now, it's just focusing on getting the word out to the voters. The voters are going to start voting in October, and it's not going to be a hard decision. The incumbent did not do a campaign the first time. The incumbent was voted in by the city council because the seat was vacated by the previous person. The incumbent is not doing campaigning right now. And that's the big advantage that Fernando has that he didn't mention to you.
Arrogant son of a gun. There is nothing I hate worse than an incumbent not doing a campaign. Fernando, what do you think hearing this? What do you like hearing this from Enrique? What is it like from a candidate's perspective to have some punk staffer telling you what to do?
No, I definitely do take everything that Enrique says into consideration. I think kind of one of the things that he's referring to in, for example, my district, we don't vote at large. And so I had to listen to him and put more focus within my district to reach out to voters, because at the end of the day, the voters are the ones that are going to get me in there, get me to win this election. but some of the businesses, maybe right around outside of my district or in other parts of town, I shouldn't waste much time, but kind of follow this process that we're learning today. Just give them a follow-up, contact them again in 7 days, and not really like be scatterbrained with this, and just stick to the plan, and not waste so much. Did I call this guy yet back or not? And wasting time in between calls and just stuff like that. So I'm going to use what I've learned today, and I'm going to try to put it into action, tomorrow, and really try to, drive as much fundraising as I can. And I think this systematic approach to it, and just kind of, going through the motions with each call, I think is going to work for me. And I'm eager to, maybe next time share my results with you guys.
Oh, Fernando is such a good politician. I asked him how much it stunk to have other people telling him what to do. And he gave a very inspiring speech about all the amazing things that he's going to go accomplish now. I would vote for you today, right this second. Really, really amazing. Really, really amazing. You got to know one thing, though, I'll tell you, and I'll tell any candidates who are on the call. Don't be too hard on yourself. This whole thing is hard. It's hard regularly. It's so much harder now in this world where we wake up every day and see some new disaster on the news and some horrible thing our president did or said. And then you have a job, and then you have a life, and then you have to campaign. Yeah, don't be too hard on yourself. If you miss a follow-up, you miss a follow-up. If you don't ask exactly the right way, you don't ask exactly the right way. But the important thing is that you sit down every day, whether you feel like it or you don't, and do the work. And that's true for any profession that's like this. That's true for writing a novel. If you sit down every day and you write 100 words, eventually the novel gets written. And that's what you're doing. So whether you feel good, you feel bad, don't worry if you have a terrible interaction with a donor who hates you, if somebody who loves you decides they're voting for the other person. Put your head down, nose to the grindstone, do what you can do, and then recognize that you can't do any more. You've reached your limits, and it's okay to turn on the TV every once in a while. It's okay to pour yourself a glass of wine. You can sit back and relax knowing that you did a job. Well done.
Thank you.
No, thank you. And thank you for running. Running is the hardest thing in the world. Awesome. Well, folks, we've hit 6:30. Does anybody have any questions that I can answer for you right now?
Quick question. So
Yes,
I got this invitation from one of the members in my committee. Is this something you guys are doing on a regular basis? And if so, how often?
I mean, not yet, but we could.
Yeah, because I learned. I'm familiar with Zoom, and and some of the things that you mentioned today. I'm going to try to integrate into my Zoom conferences, because to be quite honest with you, I haven't asked for anybody money through Zoom. It's just been more of a connection type of platform for me. But I'm going to try to utilize it to fundraise as well now. But yeah, I mean, any topics around campaigning and stuff like that, I would always love to be a part of, and just to kind of sharpen my tools.
I just do what James and Carmen tell me to do. That's so far it's worked out quite nicely. But I will tell you this: as you're making your list, you can email it to me, and I'm happy to help you clean it up. If you just need another pair of eyes on it, just let me know.
Awesome, thank you.
Of course. No, thank you.
No, I just want to let you know that I miss going to the Bay Area.
I miss coming down there.
Oh no, you're not missing too much over here.
No,
It's 100
that's
degrees.
not true. I've been down there.
No, I remember, passing Tracy, getting into Dublin, going to Berkeley, going to Martinez. We used to do a lot of work, me and my brother, down there, that area.
Excellent.
And we haven't been there in about 2 years. I'm sure it's just as beautiful as I remember it.
Well, Dublin looks like strip malls. I'm sure Berkeley and San Francisco are just as beautiful as you remember.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, I
And,
miss it too. I miss seeing other people too, and I'm glad that we were able to hop on together.
Yeah, we'll connect in the future. I appreciate your time.
Of
Thank you,
course.
and I'm gonna be logging off.
No, I
And
appreciate
I hope
you.
that everybody else got something out of this meeting. I'm sure they did.
Oh yeah, no, we had a blast. Thank you for coming.
Mhm.
James, thanks for hosting us. Carmen, thank you. You're muted.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for
Thank
showing up.
you. Bye. Bye, everybody.
Everybody.
Bye,
So
thank
nice to
you.
meet you.
Bye.